paper magic will survive like the heat death of the universe, and will...
Oh, it's a smuggler's copter. Would you like to crew this? And then it crashes because they don't understand arithmetic.
All your cards belong to me.
2 minutes into macing him in the eyeballs, I switched to pepper spray. He's like, yeah, it's all right, refreshing. And went back to the mace.
Magic is dying. I'm done. Selling everything.
I might be a hoarder. And
I
yes,
don't have the crayons or glue to explain this to you right now.
What, are you gonna die twice?
Oil will be worthless before magic cards will.
well, okay, Dr. Man.
That's Mr. Dr. Professor Jason.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a very special episode of Brainstorm Brewery. And we mean it this time. It is a special episode because it is an episode. I think that's basically where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the bar?
Yeah.
I mean, after last week, just recording this is the bar. For those who don't know, I live in Oklahoma, and occasionally you get freak storms here, and we got the earliest ice storm I've ever seen in my life in October. It was 80 degrees last week.
An
and then
early ice storm? Sounds like global warming is a myth.
Yeah,
take that,
checkmate
Dr.
atheist.
Fauci, if you really even are a meteorologist.
Well, yeah, we got a freak ice storm in October that lasted 3 days, which is unusual in itself. And because it was 80 degrees last week, all the leaves are still in full bloom. So you get all that ice on trees, and it just destroys them. You know, you
know what ice storm does? Destroy all forests.
Yeah, 50-year-old trees just split down the middle from the ice. I spent literally 3 or 4 days straight cleaning up my yard, my mom's yard, my dad's yard, friends' yards. And I still, as a matter of fact, don't have internet back. I'm here on a phone. So hotspotting in. So we're so sorry we missed last week. We kept thinking that maybe I'll be able to record tomorrow. And then Jason got very sick. So it was a series of unfortunate events, and it'll never happen again. But we appreciate you being with us this week.
Happen to us
I like the comment. Somebody was like, "We tempted fate with the previous episode," because the episode before this was like, "You can ban our card, but you can't take our podcast," and then they took our podcast.
Oh no, you're right. Wow, that's a good point. Well, we're back. It'll never happen again. Thank you for the well wishes, everybody. I do appreciate it. Things are okay.
We did tempt fate.
We're
anyway,
down.
nothing will happen again. We're good forever.
Well, yeah. So, but I'll tell you this: we have a lot of awesome stuff planned for this month. Truly, it is going to be a ton of content over November. You're going to like it, and it begins tonight with a very special guest for a bit of a special segment here. You know, we're going to spend 30 minutes talking to our special guest here, Liam Malachowski. He's a student at Syracuse University. He is a business major who does not play Magic, but has become involved a little bit, at least in learning about Magic in the marketplace for a project. So we're gonna have him on. We're gonna talk about that. We figured it'd be interesting to see what kind of questions he has, coming from both a perspective of being younger than us, but also not already entrenched in Magic. It should be fun, and then we'll have all of our regular stuff after that. So, Liam, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about Magic in the community.
Yeah, this is
this is
going to
we're
be
the
fun.
ambassadors of Magic the Gathering.
Jason was the first person you talked to. Oh no.
Yeah,
well, what he did was he went on Twitter and he's like, who is the most experienced and influential person in MTG finance? And he saw that it was me, and that's why he reached out to us.
That was the exact process.
It's right there in his Twitter bio, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think what he did you find, honest question, did you find the Magic Finance subreddit and see that Jason was the creator? And then Google him?
I did not, actually. I was I think I was Googling something about just Magic the Gathering resale. And I think MTG price or something by Jason came up.
That's good SEO, baby.
That is a website that we have all worked for in the past, as a matter of fact. Yeah, that is a website devoted entirely to Magic Finance. And, you know, people pay for that information because it is, you know, a pretty fast-moving market. So tell us a little bit about that. I guess that's how you stumbled onto us. I'm sorry we're the first ones you have to deal with here. But, I mean, tell us a little bit about what we're going to talk about, right? What the project is, what you're looking to learn.
Sure. So the project is we got split into groups in this capstone class we have, and we had to come up with an entirely new business, sort of. And our group decided to take kind of the marketplace online resale platform model and bring it to trading cards. And the original intention for that was sports trading cards and getting into the sports trading card resale market. And that is still the main goal, I guess. But I kind of was vaguely aware that Magic the Gathering had a lot of resale activity going on, just from a friend who I knew played it and talked about how expensive it can get. And so I kind of suggested that we sort of look into that, and also including Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon cards. But especially Magic the Gathering, I assume, is the biggest of that area. And I don't know much about the industry, and no one in the group really knows much about the industry. So we figured, like Jason said, why not reach out to the experts and figure out what they think about it?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's enough of a resale market that we've been doing this podcast for
8 years.
8 years.
8.5 years.
8.5 years. And, I guess enough people listen to it to keep us going. So it is a big market that you've stumbled into, obviously. So Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all of these games have resale markets, and they have centralized to a couple places across the internet. So did you know really anything about Magic other than just that it existed, or Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon? You ever play any of them or anything?
Yu-Gi-Oh, I played not really. No. I had cards, but we didn't actually play when I was younger. Magic Gathering, I've played like 3 single games with a friend who's kind of into it. So very, very basic experience.
Basically an expert, really.
Exactly.
Well, it's if you like puzzles or escape rooms, I think that's kind of you like Magic. It's always at its most basic, it's a series of solving puzzles, and each game presents a unique puzzle.
That should be Magic.
It really is, though, right?
We would get more people.
I think that's a legitimate comparison.
We could get couples, because that's who does it. It's white people who are fighting by the end of it. Megan, come back.
Well, my group had the misfortune. The other people had the misfortune. We did an escape room one time on a trip, and 2 couples were on a double date, and they said, let's go do an escape room. And they got into one of the, 10-person escape rooms, and they just signed up at the last minute. Well, they signed up for my group of 6, and we were on like our 4th escape room in a row. So we were very intense, and these poor people just spent about, 45 minutes or whatever
watching
just
you
getting
try hard.
I mean, literally at one point, somebody opened a key on one side of the room and then threw it to someone else on the other side of the room over the head of one of these couples who were just like
along for the ride, I guess.
You just like look, yeah, they just had never done an escape room. Someone literally just threw the keys over their head.
Like you're auditioning for Floor is Lava or something. Like, dude, if we get really good, we're gonna get scouted by Netflix. Like,
I would love to be on Floor is Lava. I have a crew. I'd love it. Anyways, that's what we do here, Liam. You've got the podcast in a nutshell. We talked about market finance stuff for about 30
we asked you one
seconds,
question and interrupted you with 3 tangents. That's what happened. Yeah, we're gonna get through all this in a half
Liam,
hour for sure, right?
Well, Liam, go ahead and I guess where are you starting? Is your group, are you coming up with the business model, or are you all trying to actually kind of do something?
Technically, it is just coming up with the like a business plan. Basically, you work the entire semester to come up with a business plan, and then at the end, you have all the groups it's a required class for the business school, so it's basically the entire senior class is in teams and give Shark Tank type presentations basically on one of the last Fridays of the semester. And that's some great. Of the businesses, actually have gone on and gotten funded and gotten investors and become real businesses, but it's not the main intention, I guess.
Of course. Yeah.
Sure.
No, well, that's really neat. So I guess I mean, start us off with whatever you want to ask, man. What do you want to know?
Sure. I mean, the first thing we are curious about is definitely just the established platforms that there already are for Magic Gathering resale. I guess, where do sellers go? Where do buyers go? And is there one or two platforms, or all over the place, or what?
Well, I could seamlessly transition into a Channel Fireball ad read right here, and I'm just resisting the
sweating,
urge
just
so
like
hard.
the Jordan Peele sweating meme. But no, I actually think I'd be best suited to take this one because of our location. Actually, so are you a Syracuse native? Like, have you lived here long, or?
No, I'm not. I'm from outside Philly originally.
That makes a lot of sense now. Syracuse is actually home to one of the biggest centralized hubs of online trading for Magic the Gathering and other card games.
Wow.
Like, have you like walked around downtown? I mean, I get pandemic, I guess, but like, have you ever like been downtown at all, or like anywhere near the galleries?
The galleries, I don't know. I have been downtown. I've walked around Armory Square a couple times.
Yeah. It's like right around there. There's like a big library inside. But that is the home of Tcgplayer.com. I mean, you could actually like open this up in your browser right now and just like check it out. But Tcgplayer is the sort of the progenitor of resale marketplaces specifically designed for card games, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. Just like they branched out very quickly into like the rest of nerd culture, so to speak, with like Funko Pops and all that. But they're sort of the original designed thing for that, where they started out as a forum where they just hired writers to write articles and strategy content for the game, and then they built a software that allowed you to basically just be a eBay but for specifically Magic players. Okay. And that started out as just a very small business in the CEO's basement, kind of like Tony Stark scraps style of business, and it is built into like a company that has
several hundred employees,
like 200 employees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they own the market basically, and they give it's a resale marketplace, so any third party can list on it.
Yes.
They're not selling.
So if you have a phone number and a US bank account, you can sell your cards on tcgplayer.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have a lot of algorithms. For pricing data, they have they basically set the standard on the market in terms of what the price of a card is, because there'll be dozens or hundreds of listings for any given card at any given time, and they can then give you the average price of the last 30 copies sold or something like that, right? To give the market price of the card. So it actually creates a lot of really, really detailed data about this marketplace in a way that, something like eBay is not even close to being designed to do.
Exactly. So like if you're considering buying, like, let's just say a used video game console on eBay, you would go to eBay and look at the completed listings, and you get a general idea of like a few publicly sold listings. You're like, okay, this Xbox One sold for X $100, this one sold for X $100 plus 50. Like, you get a general idea. With Magic cards, I can type in a specific card into Tcgplayer, and it gives me an approximate algorithm of like the aggregate data of what this card has sold for over the past few days.
So it's less guesswork. Like when you're listing stuff on eBay, you sort of have to be the one typing those completed listings if you're really trying to get an idea of, like, having sold on both Tcgplayer and eBay, it's much easier to figure out if you want to be the cheapest, what price you need to place your cards at to be the cheapest at that time. That information isn't available on eBay. So when you have the information on what would be the cheapest listing, it creates a race to the bottom. For someone's like, oh, well, I want to be the cheapest, so I'll list lower than that. And all of a sudden you get competition. So it's sort of like it has all the multiple sellers in the same marketplace that you would get on eBay, but the data's better, and
if I go into my
competition's healthier.
If I go into my seller platform right now, there's a button I can just hit to become the lowest seller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is very nice. So yeah, I mean, we talk about that's the biggest aspect of it, right, in the resale. Then there's the fact that stores, including our sponsor Channel Fireball, exist, and they will just buy cards from players for 50%, and or 60% or 70%, depending on how good the card is or how in demand it is. Obviously the more popular, more expensive cards you typically get a higher percentage on, and they just create this back and forth with players, where players are selling and trading in stuff, and then stores reselling it to make money. So there's thousands of stores like that, websites, physical locations, so on across the world. So I don't know if anyone, I'm looking at our notes here, I don't actually know if anyone has a guess of right what the
actual a physical
the value of the secondary market is. We have access to Hasbro, the parent company of Wizards of the Coast. Hasbro, the toy company, they own Wizards of the Coast, which makes Magic. They own Magic, and they report on it in their quarterly report every year. So you can find the numbers, and I read them every time they come out. You can find the numbers to an extent for what Magic is. You get percentages, you get up and down. They don't always have exact numbers due to the way they group their things, but you can get a general idea from.
There's shareholder meetings, like you can read between lines, and you can.
Yeah, so that's
extrapolate your own data.
That's if you're trying to get data, if you're trying to get the numbers for what the market. That's the primary market. That's everything that the company that makes the game sells. But then the secondary market is so incredibly healthy that stores like Channel Fireball that exist online are able to. There's enough people interested in Magic that they will pay for content of good Magic players playing. So then those stores are able to sponsor things like this podcast to bring more people in. There's just a very healthy secondary market that extends so far past just the top line numbers from Hasbro.
Yeah, and I can cut in a little bit, and Magic has in-person tournaments that have thousands of players at each tournament. So you can go to a convention hall on any given Saturday in a year that's not 2020, and you can find just literal thousands of Magic players inside a convention hall, and tens of thousands of dollars worth of cards being traded in that convention hall. As a very, very rough windmill guess, you can say that there's literally millions of dollars of Magic cards being traded on the floor. That is including
traded, bought, or sold.
The room's deck, every player in the room's trade binder, and just the rest of their collection they carry in their backpack, and then also just the vendors in the room. If you think of just like a trade show in general for anything, right? Like there's vendors that come and set up their booth and stay there for the entire weekend. And that's my job pre-pandemic. Is I go to these conventions, I sit down with somebody, and then I buy cards for like 12 hours a day because I'm the one that knows all the prices when somebody comes to me and they say, I'm looking to sell this deck and I want to buy this deck because this one's not doing very well. And then they put their cards in front of me, and then I put them on a little placemat, and then I hand them a bunch of money. And then my boss takes those cards and they get sorted, and then they go back out into the display case to resell them to other players who are looking to buy those cards. So
and sometimes there are 2 or 3 of those events simultaneously on different continents happening on a given weekend.
Yes.
And that's with no disruption to the established online market.
Yep. So there you go. That's a very high level view.
Pretty,
a lot of
the player base pretty international then, or is it mostly North America? Any idea, sense on how that breaks down, maybe?
Again, they don't release the numbers of anything, right? But the game is played everywhere, literally every continent. They even used to have an event called the World Magic Cup. There was, I think, 100 plus countries represented or something there. So it's a worldwide game. It's centralized. I would say the biggest, sort of hubs, right? Obviously, the United States, Canada, Western Europe, Japan, and like Brazil, I would say is probably the biggest hub in South America. So and then there's some amount of Australian players. So there's professionals who play the game for a living who make enough money playing the game that or making content that's what they do for a job. So it's big in Japan, and there's a whole the market. Even though when we talk about Tcgplayer, we're talking about domestic, but there's an equivalent of Tcgplayer for Europe. Japan has its own stores. And in a non-pandemic year, there's supply going back and forth to meet the regional demand, right? These cards are popular in Japan, but not in North America. So it creates
arbitrage.
A resale arbitrage opportunity there. So it's a very, at this point, it's gotten to be a fairly efficient global market.
So it's pretty developed then, I guess, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean,
we're 30 years
all
in.
of that development has definitely happened in the past, like,
Decade.
5 to 6 years, I'd say. It's been very recent, because even just like half a decade ago, we were still in like the Wild West kind of international arbitrage, and then even before that, we were in the Wild West of just floor trading and people learning how to make deals happen on the floor of these huge 1,000-person events. Like, you could in 2009, you could say, this person's buying this card for $9, walk 30 feet down the floor, this person's selling it for $7. I'm gonna buy all your copies. I'm gonna sell them to you.
Yeah, but eventually we caught up with technology, and the market's pretty highly efficient now. So I guess that's where we're at on that, right? It's a mature market that at this point is global.
Okay, got it. Yeah. It was pretty tough to find anything other than educated guesses on market size on the internet. So that's about what I expected, though, I think.
Yeah.
And I guess the next question I have for you would be like, what about, is it just the price tracking aspect of Tcgplayer that you think attracts Magic players, at least here stateside? Is that what gives it the advantage as a platform? Or?
Well, I think Tcgplayer, from a buyer's perspective, the buyers are attracted to it because that competition drives the price down. I think sellers are attracted to it because it's the hub. It's where all the sellers gather. So you can have your prices stack up against other people's. And
they were the first successful is maybe the wrong word. They were the first good attempt at an online marketplace.
Yes.
For these games. There had been previous websites, but they were so clunky or whatever else that they just never really caught on. Tcgplayer just blew up because they invested heavily into the technical side of the company. They made sure to have the easiest checkout experience, the stickiest web page. They came at it with a big business perspective, and they blew out of the water some of the smaller marketplaces that had existed up to that point.
I mean, you can also say that the seller UI on Tcgplayer is vastly easier to use than something on eBay. If you have a phone, like I said earlier, if you have a phone number and a bank account, you can be listing your entire $500 deck on Tcgplayer within minutes.
And eBay has
the process
as
is easy.
Tcgplayer makes it easier to sell, eBay makes it harder. eBay didn't used to require you to take a picture of every card you want to list. Now eBay requires pictures. Tcgplayer doesn't, because everybody knows what a Magic card looks like. If you say the correct condition, players know, okay, this is the condition the card's in. I don't need to know where there's edgeware. I just need to know that there's no edgeware. So it was taking me, I could list about 10 eBay listings in an hour. I could list hundreds on Tcgplayer.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you know what year around Tcgplayer started the all the price tracking data sort of on their website?
Well, I'll tell you, the thing is, Tcgplayer, what they do is they put out through their API, they put out the data, and it's actually a third-party website that began tracking the prices. So, for instance, this website, not that if it matters to you, but it's called MTG Stocks, aptly, and I can click on it, and I can see real-time, day-to-day movement of cards, prices, and it goes back to 2012. So about exactly 8 years ago, I can look up the daily price movement on a card on Tcgplayer going back to 2012.
Mm-hmm. Wow. About as long as we've been doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, before we started this podcast, that was about when they started letting individuals sell on Tcgplayer. So it's been about 8 years that like it was open to
Probably
people more than
because
just businesses.
Prior to that, in order to sell on Tcgplayer, you had to prove that you were an established physical retail location. And you were just using Tcgplayer as a way to amplify your physical in-store buying and selling.
Yeah, so that was the other breakthrough in the market they had, is that they opened it up to anybody in a way that was much easier than eBay.
And even that is still a debated topic today. There are people that don't think that anybody should be allowed to sell a card on Tcgplayer just because, like, there are some people that think that the average player does not have a discerning enough eye for condition or authenticity, or...
And those people are probably right.
Yes and no.
At least in regards to the average player's eye for condition.
But there's a review. There's a thing. Like, if you have 20 sales and you got dinged on condition 3 times, like, you're going to get skipped over. So, like, there are remedies built in.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess that kind of brings me to another question. In terms of, I know there's a big emphasis on the quality of the card, I guess, and the condition it's in, and then maybe even authenticity. I don't know if that's faking cards is
that is a thing.
If you're someone who's trying to start a resale platform business for Magic, I guess, what would be the things we would need to know about rating the cards and maybe authenticity checks and stuff like that?
Well, you wouldn't be physically handling the cards for the most part. The way Tcgplayer is set up, they would use your site to contract with the buyer. The buyer would say, hey, you have 4 copies of this card at this price. Tcgplayer takes the money from the buyer and gives the information about the buyer to the seller. The seller sends the cards. When the buyer is satisfied, Tcgplayer gives the seller them money minus their cut. So they basically broker the deal, and they're
just the middleman. They're just the middleman.
Escrow for. Yep, they introduce the buyer and seller to each other.
I will say that is part of how Tcgplayer originated.
We probably don't need to get into direct here, though.
Nope.
Right.
I mean, it's a relevant part of the business model, though. Like, it's an actual.
Sure. Okay.
So that is how Tcgplayer started, as an eBay daughter or clone or whatever you want to say it, where they are completely laissez-faire, hands off of any of the cards. And right around 2013 or so is when they launched Tcgplayer Direct. And that was when they came up with a system where they would have a physical warehouse located in the galleries of Syracuse, where they would have a very, very large number of cards in stock in their physical warehouse. And so the closest comparison for this is, do you know how Fulfilled by Amazon works?
Fulfilled by Amazon. Is that like Amazon like ships like people certain businesses products or something like that?
Yeah. So you can go
ship
on Amazon
the stuff
right
to
now.
Amazon and they handle the fulfillment. So you are basically being like, hey, I have these 10 items, buy them for me. And then the person's like, oh, I'm going to buy from this seller at this price. But instead of you selling it to the seller, you sell it to Amazon, and Amazon, their fulfillment network, handles the shipping to the end user.
Yeah, so you can go on Amazon.
Yeah, the benefit of that, Tcgplayer is the same thing. The benefit is it does allow them quality control.
Yeah, so you can go on Amazon, you can buy your Windex, you can buy your groceries, you can buy your camera, you can buy your, video game or whatever, and you can get all of those on Amazon from different sellers and still have it arrive in one package.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Tcgplayer came up with a system to do that with Magic cards. So I am a Tcgplayer direct seller myself. All these shelving behind me, those are all Magic cards. A lot of them are listed on Tcgplayer. If you want to go on TCG, you can buy those cards from me. And my store name is Card Garden. You can click checkout with my cards, and you can click checkout with cards from 10 other sellers. And then I'm going to ship those cards to Tcgplayer along with a lot of other cards that I sold for other orders that aren't you. I'm going to send those to TCG in one package. A lot of sellers are going to do the same thing. TCG is going to ship your cards to you that you ordered from their warehouse. And then my cards are going to go back up to them to fulfill their warehouse. So that is how Tcgplayer has implemented the physical handling of the cards, and they have had to they have obviously had to ramp up their employment. They've had to hire people who know what they're doing. They've had to train people and discern condition and authenticity. And we can go in a long depth discussion about like the specific tells for authenticity, the specific tells for like condition or what you're looking for with edge wear, water damage, surface wear.
I mean, suffice to say, yes. If you were trying to break into the market, you know the baseline's been set by Tcgplayer of having that quality control in theory over the grading in the direct program. So
now, if you were to start,
that is a big market advantage they have. So that is something
that might not be the best place
you'd have to be
start
concerned about. You'd have to be aware
if
of.
you're launching a platform, though.
What was that?
Say that again.
That might not necessarily be the best place to start if you're launching a platform.
Right, like TCG started from just being a third-party laissez-faire vendor, yeah.
Yeah. If you were going to make a marketplace, you might not want to physically handle all the cardboard initially, because Tcgplayer has had to make so many investments in personnel and warehousing, whereas before, it wasn't a perfect system, but it worked fine with them sort of just like holding money in escrow until the buyer was satisfied and paying out and that sort of thing. That might be a better model initially.
Yeah, we debated pretty heavily for a while at the beginning if we wanted to do really just the middleman connecting buyer and seller, or if we wanted to warehouse stuff. And we ended up going with warehousing. Kind of the way we built it is kind of a consignment model, I guess, where they would ship to us, and we actually are going to rent out a bank and store the cards in a vault in the bank. And then
that's what Tcgplayer should have done. That would have been way
I have
cooler.
a friend. There's a I mean, this is obviously
ship.
It's obviously a super small town outside of Syracuse, but like there's a friend I have who owns a local game store that used to be a bank, and he has that giant wheel.
That's
vault.
cool.
Yeah,
that's neat. Well, yeah, you're obviously on the right track because you have your group has come up with some of the same methods that the industry leaders are using.
That's good to hear, because we didn't know that much about TCG or anything like that. So that's good to know, I guess, at least.
Now, you asked us, you said in your estimation, how difficult would it be to get Magic players to use our platform in favor of the currently established ones? You said you talked to a comic book store owner who was pessimistic that Magic players would switch. I don't know how much brand loyalty there is per se. I think maybe you wouldn't need everybody to switch over. I think there are so many different ways that Magic players find cards to buy online. Some people are still just typing in at Google and they're like, oh, this card's on Amazon, or they're going into like Frugal or clicking the sales tab on Google or like stuff like that. I feel like if you build it, they will come. You will probably do enough business to make it worth it. But I think more than that, if you are diversified, you don't have to worry about Magic players' loyalty, because you probably won't encounter that with people who buy sports cards. They're probably not like, oh, I'm never gonna stop using fball.com or whatever. I kind of feel like your SEO is going to be more important than like brand loyalty. So I feel like if your prices are good, then that's going to be enough for people.
The two most important things to me would be your SEO, obviously, because you're going to get just people Googling, right? But more than that, you have to attract sellers, right? You have to have those prices. So that's if I were to advise somebody who's starting up a website who wanted to compete with the currently available options, well, the option is to make it cheaper for the sellers. Allow them to keep, and that make the fees cheaper, allow them to keep more of their profits. That, in theory, gets the sellers to you. But, it's a chicken and egg thing. The sellers are only going to spend time on your platform if they have buyers. So I think it's basically, if I were literally making a marketing plan for launching a business, I would say you would have to have some kind of targeted campaign with industry leaders to try to get buy-in, because you have to have that initial surge of users, and you have to have cultivated some sellers there. So you got to bring the sellers in with lower fees, and then you have to have a push to get people there. And, then your website has to work when and be sticky and keep them there, because people don't have any huge loyalty, I think, to any one resale platform online. They just use whatever's easiest and cheapest.
Well, Sure. We haven't even talked about, like, people have tried to make replacements for Tcgplayer. Yeah, we've been around for 8 years, and we've seen a lot of them.
We've seen them.
It started with Puka Trade. It went into Card Sphere. It went into some other ones that we've never even heard of because they fizzled out. Most recently, the most humorous one, at least, was Mage Market. If you guys remember that last year. Mage Market specifically was a European company that tried to replicate Tcgplayer's success, and they invested way too heavily, and I guess obviously is the best way to put it, but I guess into like staged social media personnel, and they just like picked a lot of...
No, that was the right approach, man. That's what I just said. You have they understand that you have to have the initial surge of users, and the only way you do that is to get basically celebrity endorsements. I mean, they had that right approach. Yeah,
it was transparent to a fault, to a point, I guess.
Yeah, it didn't work. Yeah. They did the right thing. They at least had the right idea, but it did not work. So those are your risks, right? If you're looking at it.
What was that, Jason?
Why is it the right thing then? It's like, that's what you have to do. Okay, we did it. Whoa, we fucked up.
Well, you have. I mean, there's the difference between making the right plan and executing that plan well. And if I recall, they had some self-induced wounds. No, go ahead, Liam.
Sure. That actually kind of segues, I guess, to another sort of question I had, which was we're attempting to craft the sort of marketing strategy here. And like Google AdWords was definitely gonna be a part of it. And then for both, well, definitely for the sports trading cards, and I assume this was maybe a similar thing in Magic would be the YouTube content creators. I don't know. In sports trading cards, I guess they do a lot of case breaking where they open a bunch of cards at a time. Mm-hmm. So we were looking at investing in trying to pay some creators monthly to make content featuring us. And then one thing I definitely wanted to know about from you guys is the tournament culture, I guess, and the trade shows or whatever, the big events, and how marketing, I guess, works at those events, and maybe the best way to go about it if you wanted to get in there.
Did you see Logan Paul's Pokemon video?
Not.
Have you heard of it?
I have not, no.
Pokemon is Pokemon is blowing up thanks to some of this.
I do know who Logan Paul is, yes.
So he bought a first edition base set box of Pokemon for, I think it was like roughly $250K. And then he opened it on his YouTube channel and raffled off the slots to viewers, and they bought it all.
Now Charizards are worth $400.
The cascading effect of that was a huge surge in interest in old school Pokemon cards. And that's just been a huge thing where like a lot of people have been starting to dig out their cards in their basement. Like parents have kids who watch Logan Paul and they're like, wait, those cards are worth money, and then they dig them out of their basement. And so like just this one YouTuber making a clickbaity video. I mean, you can call it clickbaity, but it obviously works. Like this one YouTuber just created this huge cascading effect on the Pokemon market, and right now Pokemon art is in just a huge bubble where the cards are so much more expensive than they were like even 2 months ago.
So you guys would say then that is YouTube content creators the majority of, I guess, personalities in the Magic world?
Yeah, YouTube is
unfortunately
YouTube and streaming are your two biggest for sure.
Twitch.
Yeah. So Twitch is pretty big for Magic, of course. So there's also I mean I don't know if we explained this. There's an online way to play Magic. I'm not sure if you were aware of that or we had mentioned that. I realize.
Yeah.
So it's streamed as any other video game is, essentially, even though we're talking about the paper side of the game.
Right.
Which you asked if it was affected by COVID. The paper cards in a casual format have actually been pretty good because people have been playing on their webcams because they want to play with their physical cards. So there's a more casual sub format of Magic the Gathering called EDH or Commander. Commander's done very, very well because of COVID, but some of the other formats, the more competitive ones, have not. So people that are playing 4-player games with friends on webcam for no prizes, those cards have been fine to better. But the people playing one-on-one competitive stuff for prizes, there haven't been paper. Paper, meaning the physical cards. There haven't been paper in-person tournaments in almost a year. So that stuff has not been doing quite well. But I think EDH has been carrying a lot of the market for a long time anyway. So things are limping along just on the basis of people buying physical paper cards to play EDH.
And in a larger sense to say is, has the market been affected by COVID? Jason's right, talking about what it's done to the individual card prices and how we've seen divergence there. All those big events we talked about that aren't happening, that is where the vast majority of players sell their cards to dealers like DJ, who then turn around and sell the cards online. So in COVID, with none of those events happening, the supply chain is kind of effectively broken. The people still send their cards by mail into stores and sell them. So there's still, there's a semblance of a market, but you go from having just thousands of Magic players every single weekend trading in millions of dollars worth of cards that are resold. That supply chain's gone now, right? That's just not happening. So it is. And then because you can't even play, you're not supposed to gather to play in even 30-person tournaments at your local store, it's also had an effect on the sales of the game at the first line from Wizards. So yeah, the market has been very drastically altered by COVID because of the supply chain no longer functioning as it used to.
So some stores have had to get really clever and innovate a little bit, and our sponsor channel Fireball has decided to just do all the buy listing for you, basically. One way people get their cards to the dealers is something called a buy list, where they're like, hey, we're selling this card for $250. We'll give you $170 if you send it in. And you're like, that sounds pretty good. So you pack up that card. You go on a list on their site and be like, I'm sending you click 2 copies of this. You're buy listing for $170. Here's 2 of them. I expect $340. You'll sell it for $5 or whatever. Everybody wins. That's a lot of work for a lot of people. So what Channel Fireball has done is just throw everything in a box, send it to us. We'll tell you what you got. And that's one way they've made the buy listing process a little less painful. And innovations like that, I think, have been necessary because Channel Fireball can't go to a GP anymore and be like, we have the biggest booth, come to our booth. So that's some of the stores have, been really hungry for getting stock in. So Tcgplayer has been good because individual sellers can sell on it. A platform that has individual sellers is going to be better off than a store that selling is easy, but buying is hard at that point. You can sell all your stuff, but then when are you going to get more?
Yeah. Because I guess this is the important, the baseline of it. This isn't selling a widget where you can just buy more widgets from the distributor. Essentially, right? For these cards that aren't being actively printed, some of these cards we're talking about are 15 years old. The only way to get them is to buy them from the secondary market and resell them from the secondary market. You can't just place an order with your distributor for these cards. You can buy the new product from Wizards, but that's such a tiny fraction of the total secondary market that it's, that's not your business. That's far from all of your business. So, things have gotten very interesting this year in the Magic market.
That definitely sounds like it benefits, I guess, the individual sellers and the individual seller platforms, just the big.
Absolutely.
And then going back to the the tournaments you guys talked about, what is typically the marketing that goes on at these tournaments from brands and stuff like that? Is there a lot of it, or no?
So the way it works is most of the stores will buy booth space at an event. hosted by a tournament organizer. So if you are running your own store and you need to go buy cards, well, you're going to pay for the privilege. And that's sort of the underlying model of running an event, running a 2,000 person tournament and renting out that much space. So
I can give a little bit more detail on that. And the system is very heavily favored towards vendors who buy multiple slots and pay in advance. And like the more money you have up front to pay for your booth, the better slot you're going to get in the bidding war kind of thing. I was with one of the larger companies that was able to get one of the better slots, and one of the reasons we were able to have the better slots is because we had the better prices, and we wanted the second anybody walked in the room to see our prices and go, I know what that card's worth, and that's lower than that, so I'll give you my money. And then the people that walked away would walk all the way down the line, see higher prices, then come back and say, well, you guys were the best. So marketing definitely plays a huge part of it in terms of like your signage, your ability to distinguish yourself from the rest of the market. Like most of the vendors in the room, at least the regulars, have their own sort of color scheme. Like there's the purple booth, the blue booth, the red booth, the green booth. There's also just like the ability to get people to your booth with ancillary things like vendors have experience with like lighting and just like scaffolding type huge building things they've built in the event hall to just attract people into that area. Even hiring like cosplayers and like other people like that to just be near the booth and just attract warm bodies to your area.
Okay, so there is a lot of showmanship, I guess, that goes into it then.
Yeah, it's all just it's just.
I wouldn't say it's like
percentage.
A circus in there, but I mean.
Yeah, no, it's just a percentage game, though, right? It's just about foot traffic.
But that's such a weird
maximizing it
part of the market, though.
Do what?
Like that's all very specific to the event.
It is like Magic Fest and in-person tournaments are a very small. But
that's how it is for all the games. I assume that's how it works for sports cards at sports card shows too.
Sure, I just don't think that's germane to the thrust of their project, is what I'm saying.
True. Yeah. No, Jason's right. Like the in-person events that happen at Magic Fest are like such a small percentage of the total overall market share in Magic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like outside the scope of what your project would approach anyway.
Well, I assume we're giving him far more details than he'll ever want, but this is going to be a very good episode for people to learn about the basics of the market.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, we were deciding like how much of our marketing budget we wanted to allocate to attending these trade shows and stuff. So I was trying to get a sense, I guess, of how much
frankly, as a if you're going for a reseller method, you probably want it, right? Like if you are trying to be the middleman, not the first party buy from one person, sell to the next, then you probably don't. I would focus much more of my budget on my internet, side of things rather than a physical
like paying software
side of
debts and stuff like that.
Yeah. This isn't like the computer industry where like the trade shows are just everyone with booths set up and like people walk around to the different booths to like get pitched on. Like it is kind of like that, but like the booths are a physical location to buy and sell cards rather than like pitch your product.
It's just a different side of the market, you know, and they correctly identified that the resale market is a lot better than probably an easier base to plan for.
I can't speak to how this would go for like sports cards or anything like that, but I have a feeling that anything that's bought and sold, like Magic singles, sports card singles, Pokemon singles, all that stuff that you're targeting, I think the trade shows are going to be more bazaars and less marketing opportunities. I don't think it works like it would in like an electronics expo or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think they are pretending to be trade shows, but they're really more jumble sales, I guess, right? Like when you really come down to it. So I think we're all cautioning you to worry about creating awareness for your platform in another way. You could buy a booth at a GP and people come up, it's like, oh, you're just advertising for a place to sell, but you don't have any cards on you right now. Okay. Allocate your budget elsewhere, I think.
That's good. That's very useful insight, actually, I think. Because we do have maybe $20,000 or $30,000 a year. I think going towards that right now. So
I can't speak to sports cards, but I'm almost positive it's the same thing.
It's got to be the same. Advertising budget is good, but that's not where you'd want to spend.
No, I mean, Corbin, I can speak to that with a physical number right now.
Yeah.
A booth at that event for a weekend is $10,000.
Yeah, that's what we thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like our company, it's public information. Like anybody can look up how much a GP booth costs. Like it's at least $10,000 for a weekend for a booth.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we were planning on spending a few $100s for each of these events, and then our professor, not even to our group, just in general, was like, "I know you guys are all going to underestimate how expensive trade shows are. Every single one, minimum $5,000 to $10,000."
Everything that happens in a convention center is absurdly expensive, which we know because we hosted a Brainstorm Brewery party last year in a convention center in a small room at an event. And it costs all kinds of dollars. We were getting charged like
for chairs,
per tablecloth at some point. Like it was per napkin. It was rough. Wow. So yeah, anything that happens in a convention center is going to blow out your budget.
But it's good to know that you can kind of avoid that, and you can tell your professor we said so because as opposed to just like, yeah, we're fine, professor, and he's like, oh, but when I sold computers,
no, primary research right here. They love when we have firsthand interviews and stuff like that. So
make sure to send your professor this podcast that a professor of business thinks about what we have to say.
Professor Hostler. Do you concur, Professor Hostler?
Oh, that's right. This would be a peer of mine. I'm sorry, I forgot.
So, yeah, Magic popularity has been increasing very steadily. We expect Magic's popularity to increase for 5 years. We're getting a Netflix show, probably. Hasbro realizes that it's like their best property. You know, it's not their most money-making property, but like it's doing great and keeps growing.
It's close.
It didn't get hurt by Toys R Us going down. Like, Magic's probably going to, barring everybody getting really upset about something trivial, which is a possibility, I kind of think Magic will continue to grow for the next 5 years at least.
We have a little bit that we play in the beginning of the podcast, like an intro bit with all of our quotes or whatever. One of mine is like, Magic will survive the heat death of the universe.
Yeah, this is good information to put it this way. Magic is counter-recessionary, and that maybe doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. Also, I may have made that term up, but Magic did well in 2008. That was when I was getting into college / out of college the last couple of years of that recession. And Magic did very well. The cards individually got very expensive, but Magic just got more popular. Probably has a lot to do with the demographics of people that play the game. Yep. Tend to be college educated, middle class, upper middle class. A lot of people play Magic. It has a giant, diverse community, but it's a luxury hobby. It takes money to play the game at almost any level. You can play for cheap. You can play for fun for cheap, but you're not going to get very far that way, and that's fine, right? But so it is generally played by people with money to spend. So the recession in 2008 did not slow down Magic. Now that they have an online game, I guess we don't know what's happened in 2020. But Magic has outperformed the stock market if you look at the value of some of the original cards. And it has been recession proof.
And cards retain their value. So in financially tumultuous times where it's like, well, you could spend $5 to go play Friday Night Magic with the cards you've been using for 3 months, and you might get 45, 50, 60% of the value of those cards back out when you're done using them. Versus if you go buy a kayak, that's your kayak, idiot. Hey, does anybody want to buy my kayak? I spent $800. Can I get $200 for my kayak? No, go fuck yourself. That's your kayak. It's one of those hobbies where it's like you can just get money back out for it. And sometimes it's like, oh, these Lion's Eye diamonds I've been writing Lotus Petal on the back of. Can I get 50 cents for those? Like, no, they're a little dinged up, but I'll give you $400. It's like, what? But I've just been sitting them in a box for 10 years. Oops. You accidentally hit the jackpot on your old stuff. So that happens. Plus, like, you can just bust packs and make money, and you can play for cheap if you already have the cards. So all those things are appealing in a recession where it's like, well, we cannot go to Disney World this year. I cannot afford a PS5, but I'll be damned if I'm not playing Friday Night Magic.
Yeah, so they seem like a relatively liquid asset, I guess, compared to
other
like things.
Compared to almost every other hobby in gaming and in sports and in compared to other hobbies that cost money, right? Like you can buy a card for $10, and then when you're done with it, you can either list it on Tcgplayer yourself for $10, do all the work, and then get the $8.50 after the shipping and fees, or you can just mail it to a buy list. You can post it on Facebook and say, does anybody want to buy this card for $7? And somebody's going to say yes, because then they want to sell it for $10 and make the $8.50. Like it's very, very, very liquid.
Got it. Yeah. And so definitely, it seems like in our research, our basic background research definitely seemed like the popularity and all that was definitely going to kind of continue steadily increasing, maybe not exploding, but I guess the last sort of question thing I'd want to know is like just general knowledge maybe, or something. What would you tell people about Magic or MTG Finance from an insider's perspective to someone on the outside? What's something you should know about basic
something?
All right, what do you got, Corbin?
I will say
lay it
this.
on him, Professor Hostler.
We've talked a lot about cards that go up in price, how the cards are very liquid, how there's a lot of good money involved, and how you can make a lot of money on it. And it's, like I said, it's outperformed the stock market. It's really easy to look at it that way. But the reality is that you don't often buy cards for very cheap that then become very expensive. Most of the money is made through exactly what we've spent this episode talking about, which is putting in the work to buy that card from somebody and then flip it for 15%
it's
a platform for yourself. That is where the money, the profits are made in
it is
the
a
game.
volume game, not a margins game. So my advice, I mean, you asked for advice from somebody who is on the inside to somebody who's on the outside. And my advice would be to like hire that person. And like
that's good general advice, honestly, DJ.
Like,
that's great
if
advice.
If you're looking for an insider approach, and if you're looking for like to pick the mind of somebody who is like incredibly intelligent about the industry, just like pay them money and then get that information from them, and then like they are invested and they have a reason to tell you like everything you want to know. Like I have friends in this industry who have built what they have from nothing, coming from an outsider's perspective, and they were just coming from your situation where they're like, I don't know anything about this industry, but I know about computers and I know about software development, and I played Magic for a while, and then they hired a bunch of people who also have been doing this for 10 years, and now they're the CEO of a bigger organization. Like it's
so maybe your trade show budget would be better spent on consultancy fees for people that understand the individual markets.
That's an interesting thought. I'm gonna write that down. Possibly.
Honestly, DJ, that's great advice in general, right?
Yeah,
because almost no matter what basically anything you're going to go into, right? And as it turns out with Magic, Magic's existed for 28 years or something now, 27 years. There's a lot of knowledge there that you just can't learn on the go. I mean, and as dumb as we are, we have like 30 years combined experience or whatever between us literally doing this stuff, right? And you can't just, and we're dumb. We just have a stupid
every
show.
Mistake you can make. If you would like to not make every mistake we made, you just have the person who made the mistakes sell those mistakes to you, right?
Like the 10,000 hours rule, I guess. You kind of need an expert.
Malcolm Gladwell's a hack. Sorry. Every time I hear 10,000.
With that said, the only thing that has remained true of my time in Magic is that it is constantly changing. The market is always changing. You always have to be adapting.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like if you took me from 2019 and then you made me buy cards at like this like metaphysical, like invisible, non-realistic GP this year, and you're like, yeah, use your 2019 knowledge to buy cards, I would get fired immediately. I'd be like,
because it changes so often.
I'm paying $8 in Death Shadow, right? We sell that for 11. He's like, no, we buy that for 1 now. We sell it for 3. and that's true across the board for like every card. It's either gone up by 800%, down by 800%. There's a few constants. Like there are some cards that like this has been
You're making it sound like
forever,
Yu-Gi-Oh. Calm down.
Most of the time, card prices change a lot, and you need to constantly have your finger on the pulse of something.
Yeah. But not only do the card prices change, right? Because if you're the reseller market, you basically don't care about the individual.
You don't care
prices
about
of
it.
Cards, but the marketplace itself
changes
a lot. So it
you just need to have
smartphones change the game. These days, you can literally scan. You can just point your phone at a card, and it will scan it and give you the price of that card in half a second. So that was a game changer. The market is constantly changing, and the tools you have to use to stay ahead of it are as well.
Okay. Yeah,
All right. I'm sure we've bored you enough over the last hour. Did we cover most of it?
Yeah, you said 30 minutes, and in my head I was like, why? Why would you?
I think you guys did cover at least all the questions I had for you. I could think of beforehand. Yeah, that's. I think we ran through all of them there.
Well, make your group listen to this podcast, and I'm speaking directly to them now. Liam put in a lot of work into this, so maybe grab him a beer, whatever it is you can do these days when you're socially.
And we hope we have really gone super granular on maybe 5% of the scope of the entire project. We really hope it was worth it.
It definitely was.
I mean, not all of this is going to hold true for those other games, but like it might.
Yu-Gi-Oh is bigger than Magic. I don't know if you guys know that.
What's that?
Do what?
Yu-Gi-Oh is bigger than Magic. So is Pokemon.
In what sense, though?
As brands?
Yu-Gi-Oh is a bigger card game than Magic is.
Like, do you mean like by market size, or do you mean by people who play?
Globally, by both. Yu-Gi-Oh is the most popular card game in the world.
Yu-Gi-Oh is pretty popular. Is Yu-Gi-Oh big in China?
Yes.
Is China involved in this? Yeah.
It's got a television show. Magic needs a television show. I'm telling you.
Well, they keep trying, man.
We could get one.
Liam, literally, they got the people who directed In-Game, right? It was In-Game? It's been so long, I can't remember. They got the guys who directed In-Game
the Russo
to do
brothers?
the Magic Netflix show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now I just think the project might be dead.
Because of COVID.
But they've been swinging for the fences, man. At one point, they announced they were making a feature-length movie. They keep trying, but I don't know. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. Maybe it is.
Because they made a feature-length Dungeons & Dragons movie, and they're like, we'll get Jeremy Irons. There's no way this will be a piece of shit if we have Academy Award winner Jeremy Irons. Thora Birch just did American Beauty. She's hot right now. And who's funnier than Damon Wayans, or Marlon Wayans, that showed he's got remarkable acting chops, having just been in Requiem for a Dream. We assembled the perfect cast. Dungeons and Dragons is very popular. This could not possibly go wrong. And then they're like, oops, we forgot to make a good movie with all these elements. So maybe we don't want a Magic movie. Because right after that movie came out, Magic bought TSR. So there you go. It ruined.
We've reached the part of the podcast where Jason has transitioned into his Film Hooligans podcast. So.
Well, someone needed to do it.
Well, Liam,
Film_Hooligans on Twitter.
No, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate you guys taking an hour to explain this to a newbie here. This is great, though.
Yeah, man. That was fun.
You told us we were the most prominent in the community, and we were like, well, we have to.
You flattered us, man. It's all it takes.
Yeah, that's what Google told me. I'm just the messenger. Google says you guys are number one, I think.
Well, Liam, thanks a ton for coming on the show, man. It was a lot of fun. I hope we didn't bore you too much. At least make your classmates suffer through it. It'll help our download numbers, and they'll have to go through the same thing you did. So thanks for coming on the show, dude.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, everybody else, stick around. This is not the entire episode, though. We're going to give you more content. We got some segments coming up. We are going to break that bulk. We're going to make some picks, and then we'll get out of here. So hang around.
Will we read an email? Probably not.
All right. We've been telling you for a few weeks about our friends over at the Original Magic Art Store. And today we want to actually take that a step farther. We love what they've going on over there. We love the access to artwork. They now have over 100 artists on the website. It's a big achievement. And we have actually an affiliate account over there that gives you a discount. So if you are interested in any of those things we've talked about before, getting the prints of arts, getting play mats, any of the stuff you want, you can just go to originalmagicart.store/Brainstorm Brewery, or you can just add the discount code BrewCrew to your checkout at the store to save 10% on every order of $10 or more. So look, this is a great website that we are talking about because we really do think they do great work and love, as we've talked about before, what they've added to the market in terms of bringing art to people and connecting people with an aspect of Magic that they love. So a couple of the recent additions include Angel of Destiny, Knight of Autumn, Ugin, Valakut Awakening, Imri, lots of great stuff. So please go to originalmagicart.store/Brainstorm Brewery. Check out everything they have to offer. Well, everybody, I hope that you liked that segment. Long segment, I know, is a bit of a deep dive, but you know what? We always talk about how we should do these timeless episodes, or these episodes that if we want to point somebody back to this moment of when we talked about it, this was a good opportunity to do that. We had somebody who knew nothing about Magic, but was stuck with us for an hour so that he could graduate from college. And now we have an intro to the Magic Market podcast episode. So we did it.
DJ and I were stuck podcasting with two people who knew nothing about Magic. It was really rough for us.
Yeah, that is kind of how I feel after the past week. But we are not going to leave you all without some segments since you did not get them last week. And we're going to start things off.
Breaking bulk time. Breaking bulk time. Break.
Oh, yeah, breaking bulk. There's so much good stuff.
It's a pick. Breaking bulk. The end.
We're going to call segments segs until...
Segs.
Yep,
we got some segs for y'all.
Let's move on to the next seg. Huh?
Okay.
Order some apps for the table.
All right, man. I got one for you then. How about this? Shards of Alara, blue uncommon.
I'm sorry, which of our segs are we in right now?
Breaking bulk would be the seg we are currently inside.
TJ wants to go to bed.
What did you say, DJ?
I said the one where you guess the card.
Oh, yes, that's correct. All right. It's a blue uncommon from Shards of Alara.
Hey, DJ, thanks for getting in the Halloween mood. I love your Crispin Glover costume.
I don't get that reference.
I don't get it
Yeah,
either.
but one of our listeners will, and they're laughing at you right now.
Oh, good for them.
So,
Filigree Sages is a recent addition to the Breaking Bulk. Popped up to $1 with the release of, I guess, Ikoria.
It goes it goes infinite with the mana rock, the chromatic 7 mana thing.
Yep, there you go. So Chromatic Orrery, is that what we're talking about?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Filigree Sages, by the way, $1 now from your Shards of Alara bulk, if you didn't know. So new
it's in your
to
bulk.
the Breaking Bulk.
You 100% weren't picking this before. It's still
Do what?
There. I wasn't picking this. Like, I had to go back
I
to
wasn't
my
picking
bulk
it. It
and
was
find
19
always.
cents. Yeah.
I have an Urza's Destiny green uncommon.
Wow. Urza's Destiny green. Is it Yavimaya something? The creature?
No. Nope. It's Yavimaya nothing. It's none of... Nope.
A green uncommon from Destiny. Is it an aura?
No.
Wow, it's not an aura or that elf that has auras on it. This was an aura set.
It was Urza's Destiny, you said? That's definitely the bottle. Urza's Beaker, right? I got it?
It's the Erlenmeyer flask. It's not a beaker.
Okay.
Jesus. Come on.
That doesn't help me at all, but, you know.
Is it what card type is it, DJ?
Enchantment.
Rancor.
That's from
No.
Urza's Legacy, so no.
And Ranker's common. Jeez.
Whatever. By the time I started playing Magic, they were printing Rancor.
You stumped me, DJ. I played back then.
What about Compost?
Compost.
What does that card
you
do?
got me. You got
It
me.
is
I don't even know what
one
this
in
one
a
does.
It is 1 in a green enchantment. Whenever a black card is put into one of your opponent's graveyards, you may draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good.
Sure.
So if there's, it's sort of like Carpet of Flowers, where the odds of this doing something really, really powerful are significantly higher than the odds of it doing nothing. And if you're playing at a table where this does nothing, you're already giving yourself a significant advantage, even if you don't have this card in your deck anymore.
Because you aren't playing
So,
against a
like,
bunch of black decks.
Yeah, it's like Carpet of Flowers. Oh no, nobody's playing blue. I guess my win percentage went up by 10%. Like,
Yeah.
Compost is similar in that it just draws you a lot of cards over the course of even 1 or 2 turns before somebody really realizes what a threat it is.
Yeah.
And it's worth
that's
money,
pretty cool.
which is why it's a break in bulk.
Well, I got a
Yeah.
break a bulk card. It is from Time Spiral. And it is blue. And it is common.
Time Spiral?
Time Spiral. Urza's Hourglass.
Clock spinning.
It's a creature.
The silence means I got it right.
It's a
It
creature.
says it's a creature.
Oh, never mind.
Blue common or uncommon? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
common.
Common.
Luder
Come on.
Elcor.
It is Luda Elcor. This is a
Shadow.
rogue with shadow, and you loot when you hit him. What's not to like? We're hitting people
I
with
play this in
rogues.
Sig.
Anawan the Ruin Thief is the number 2 most popular deck on EDH Rec this week, after, you
Mhm.
guessed it, Omnath. This last week
Yep.
was nuts. People started building old stuff again. So it's like Omnath, Anawan, Atraxa, Golos, Korvald is the top 5. Crazy. Not a lot of new stuff in the going on. Akiri's in the top 20, but like other than that, people really aren't that excited about the new stuff. They're building their Kaikar Winds Fury deck instead.
We'll talk about this more in the future, but this all has inspired me to build a 2019. You've heard of 93, 94 Magic. Well, I've got 1920 Magic for you, which doesn't quite sound as good. But I'm going to build a commander deck with only cards from 2019 or 2020, and I think that deck might wreck my play group, because that seems to be the way these things go these days. So
only
looking forward
broken
to it.
cards? Oh, neat. That sounds fine. Yep. Luder
at first I was
Elcor.
like,
Good card.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, well, Luder Elcora's Shadow was one of the first cards I think when I started playing. I played against. Somehow my friends and I had a bunch of Time Spiral cards to play with when they were teaching me.
Okay.
Weird set to learn, that was for sure.
Yep. It was a very complicated set. You're like, well, now that you understand how tapping lands for mana works, we're going to work on the flashback mechanic, and then you will introduce you to planeswalkers, and then you just blow your brains out.
Here's a card with flanking and suspend. Enjoy.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
look,
actually,
if you,
Thysis Thysis counts on resolution. So if you remove the creature, you don't lose half of you.
Well,
and they're just like,
I cast some. I can't pronounce that card, but I cast that card quite a few. That was in, as a matter of fact, that is still in my like 65 card black red casual deck across the room, because I never took apart those first
that
couple
card
decks.
was
I did.
a beating in limited.
Sure was.
Just wreck
It
it.
was-
Oh,
it
you got a
was quite the
6/6
card.
dragon? Well, why don't you
I-
eat it? Eat it all.
I think you can tell if people are going to get as deep into Magic as I did if you throw Time Spiral at them and see if they don't quit.
Yeah, if they're like,
You know, not
"This
that we
game
were drafting or
sucks."
anything, but just the cards I had access to with my friends. It was like Kamigawa Soul Shift and Time Spiral cards. That was the first cards I was introduced to Magic with. I would play a Soul Shift deck. My friends would have Charbelcher. was fun.
Soul Shift.
Certainly
What a
way to
mechanic.
learn, but
Pick of the week, pick of the week, pick of the week. Time for the pick of the week.
all right. Well, before DJ passes out on us, he's trooped through quite a bit tonight. Let's do pick of the week. And as a reminder, any of the cards we're talking about, any of the cards you might be interested in, you can get from channelfireball.com, your best source for Magic content and listening to this podcast on Channel Fireball. You should go check it out and buy some of their cards or sell them your cards. You can just ship them a box and they will look at all the cards and tell you what they're worth and they will cut you a check. It's that simple. Just send them a box if you're a member of CFB Pro. So let's get on into the pick of the week.
Get store credit. You don't need a check. You just get cards. Just like, here's cards, now give me cards. That's what I like to do. I've been getting a ton of stuff from Channel Fireball lately.
Yeah, it works too.
They'll send Magic cards to your house in an envelope, and then you can play with them. It's great. Recommend it.
I'll go first here. I'm going to talk about a pet card of mine that I think is at a low point here, and this is probably a long-term pick because I think it needs paper to come back, but Eldritch Evolution is a card that I absolutely love. And it looks like it has bottomed out at $3. It was mystery boosted. It was about $2.25, $2.50, and it has since kind of seems to have plateaued and risen up to about $3. So Eldritch Evolution, barring any future reprints, etc., seems to be at a low. And the card is insane as a tutor. It has the birthing pod thing, right? Where it only gets better the more cards they print, and it's in. It's already a card that is played in Modern. It's a card that is played in Pioneer. So, we're probably looking at the COVID market for anything, COVID to go away before this card would ever go crazy. But I do think it's just a generically powerful card that does see play in different places, and it seems to be coming off its bottom. So if you're interested in that, now's a good time to pick them up.
This has real strong EDH rec metrics.
Does it really? I was curious.
Almost 1,300 decks, 6% of all blue decks or all green decks in the database.
Wow, that would explain why it came off that low pretty quickly. And I mean, that's why I'm picking the card, right? It feels like it's the graph shows what I wanted to show. It looks good right now.
It's in a quarter of all Ashaya decks, and Ashaya was real popular for a long time. So yep, Eldritch Evolution's a real strong EDH card. Plus, it's playable outside EDH. We love that cross-format applicability.
What do you got, Jason?
I have a cross-format card. It was designed with Modern in mind, ? But I've come to love it as an EDH player. Fallen Shinobi. This is a card that's getting played in Anawan the Ruin Thief, obviously, but like Ukama, Zareth San, Yoriko, Etrata the Silencer, Scarab God, there's no wrong way to turn a creature into a different creature, especially one that smacks them for 5, and then they exile the top 2 cards of the library, and you can play those cards without paying their mana cost. Stealing cards from your opponent
powerful.
Is fun.
I've floated this in SIG for a very it's floated on like the 102nd card slot for like the entire time.
I think you should play it, man. It's such a beating.
$2. Now, nobody's buying Modern Horizons right now. This is hard to reprint. $2 is too cheap on this card, and I think it's in too many decks that are getting popular right now. Fallen Shinobi just seems like a no-brainer at $2 to me.
All right. DJ?
So part of my pick is based on information that we got as a community that we weren't supposed to get. So me giving that little 5-second heads up was your spoiler warning for if you didn't want to hear leaked content.
Fair enough.
It's a bit of a gamble, but based on the blankety blank that JJ is gonna bleep out, no. No. Yeah. I like snakes, and I've liked a lot of snakes for a very long time, and I've just been like hoarding certain cards in hopes that they go back to, not even in hopes that they go back to that plane, right?
Are you picking a cyber snake?
in hopes that like
future snake.
In hopes that there's a rumor that we go back. Like just not a lot needs to happen for needles to move on cards, right?
Yeah.
So one of those snakes that is actually very good in other decks, not just any sort of theoretical plane that we visit, is Oran Frostfang. This is a This is a 5-mana 2/6 attacking creatures you control have Death Touch, and then all of your creatures are Oran Vipers.
Oran Vipers.
Yeah. So it's a snow creature, which isn't really relevant, but just if there's some sort of snake tribal commander at some point in the next 2 years, this is going to be $15. And if there's not, I think this still probably goes to 10, just because it's one of the few cards from C18 that actually ended up being really powerful.
It's really cool, actually. It's a cool card.
I play this in Thantis because other people are forced to attack and then they can't block.
Yeah. All right. Really good. There you go, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If it's a little bit of a refresher for some of you, thanks for sticking with us. We understand, but you know what? I am glad we made this episode. I think it came out well for what it could be, and you know, I mean that kid from college is never going to forget that time he had to go on a silly podcast about a game he didn't play and listen to three nerds talk for an hour about really boring stuff. So, hey, we made a difference in someone's life today. That's what I'm saying.
That's what you get for not having a podcast last week. You didn't get one this week either.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching, and thank you again for all the well wishes everyone sent to me. I really do appreciate it. This is Brainstorm Brewery. We'll see you all next week.
Yeah, don't promise the next week anymore.
It's a fair point.